All right, good morning. I want to thank everyone for joining us virtually for our 2021 Police Week Award Ceremony. My name is Captain Brad Koch and I work currently in the Central Division. Today is a special occasion as we recognize the outstanding and incredible work our employees have done over the past year. Oftentimes we feel that work we do on a daily basis is ordinary, but that same work is considered extraordinary by our family, friends, and citizens, and today we get to celebrate that work. At this time, I'd like everyone to please stand for the presentation of our colors by the CMPD Honor Guard, then remain standing for the singing of our national anthem by Communications Supervisor Dre Galloway, followed by our invocation from Chaplain Theo Schaefer.
Good morning, and let us pray. Eternal Creator, we are ever thankful for your hand upon your people our department, the families, officers, and leaders who lead us. We ask for a special blessing today as we celebrate and award courageous, amazing people. We thank you for the grace you've given them and their families and their support to be all that you've called them to be and to do. And we appreciate every moment, every memory, and the legacy we continue to move forward. This is in your strength, in your shalom, and with your grace. It's in your name we pray. Amen and amen.
You may be seated. This time I'd like to ask our Chief of Police, Johnny Jennings, to the stage to say a few words. Chief.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you for everyone being here. Thank you for those who are watching virtually as well. Also, I want to give special thanks to those who put this extraordinary event together. Although it may seem seamless when we're up here doing this, it took a lot of work to get to this point. So today you're going to hear some extraordinary stories about some great work from our employees with CMPD. You're going to hear about employees that have done extraordinary work during unordinary times and circumstances. I want you to think as you hear these stories of what the last year has looked like for our profession and the challenges that we faced. Yet on top of that, the work that's been done has been above and beyond what has been expected of our employees. So it goes without saying, as we continue to discuss how we are the best agency in the country, times like this and events like this, when you get to hear exactly why we're saying that. So I applaud each and every employee for being resilient in what the times that we've faced. And I especially applaud those who have gone the extra step and taken that extra level and will be receiving awards today. So thank you, God bless, and I look forward to hearing some of the great work of these extraordinary men and women.
Thank you, Chief.
Detective of the Year. The Detective of the Year award is presented to the detective whose body of work demonstrated a high degree of creativity, tenacity, and sense of urgency in solving cases.
This year's winner is Detective Brent Koick. Detective Koick is assigned to the Violent Criminal Apprehension Team in the FBI's Safe Streets Task Force. He's responsible for coordinating virtually all out-of-state apprehensions of wanted fugitives, violent fugitives that have fled from our jurisdiction. Having developed an expansive network with local, state, and federal agencies nationwide, he's proved to be instrumental in the quick apprehension of violent fugitives. Detective Koick's work clearly demonstrates a high degree of tenacity, creativity, and sense of urgency in solving his cases regardless of the time of day or night. Resulting from his reputation, knowledge, work ethic, and dedication, Detective Koick is contacted almost weekly by police agencies nationwide to assist with locating, investigating, and apprehending subjects. Detective Koick has been recognized by the Director of the FBI for his work on high-profile federal cases and is currently assigned to investigate one of the FBI's 10 most wanted subjects. Congratulations, Detective Koick.
Telecommunicator of the Year. The Telecommunicator of the Year is presented to a member of the Telecommunications Division who has shown professionalism, exceptional work, and a positive attitude.
This year's winner is Kevin Gattani. Kevin is in his 4th year with our communications division. In September of 2020, Kevin developed training for the 911 communications division on how to patch and unpatch encrypted and unencrypted talk groups on the Motorola radio system. In addition, Kevin successfully trained 3 employees on the radio and mentored 2 additional employees. He was selected as Telecommunicator of the Quarter for the 3rd quarter in 2020 for his superior performance and outstanding work while handling high-priority calls. Kevin consistently demonstrates his professionalism and dedication as a call taker and dispatcher and has contributed significantly to the success of the 911 Communications Division. Congratulations, Kevin.
Civilian Employee of the Year. The Outstanding Civilian Employee of the Year is presented to a civilian member of the CMPD who has distinguished themselves through either an accumulation of exceptional contributions or in a single incident.
This year's recipient is Sandy Delasua Bastola. During this past year, Sandy has not only served as a catalyst for many public affairs initiatives, but she's also consistently demonstrated the highest level of drive and commitment to her responsibilities. Regardless of the initiative, Sandy always exemplified a high energy and extraordinary motivated attitude. For example, as the foundation was laid for the Core 4, without being tasked or directed to do so, she took ownership in ensuring that the Core 4 initiatives were personalized to become part of our brand identity for internal use and knowledge and for public recognition and transparency. Without Sandy's leadership, Core 4 would have been less of a CMPD way of service and more just words on a piece of paper. Sandy consistently and professionally represents CMPD with the media, City Council, city staff, and private agencies. She has truly made a habit of being excellent by getting things done before anyone has to ask. In addition to all of these things, Sandy has also led the charge for the CMPD Serves initiative, developing and overseeing the department-wide rollout and training. Congratulations, Sandy, on your accomplishment.
Sworn Employee of the Year. The Sworn Employee of the Year is presented to sworn members of the CMPD who distinguish themselves through either an accumulation of exceptional contributions or a single incident, and whose actions clearly place the individual well above others of equal rank or grade.
This year's Sworn Employee of the Year is Lieutenant Robert Phelps. Lieutenant Phelps is to be recognized for the outstanding leadership he provided to the Property and Evidence Management Division and for all CMPD officers. His appreciation for the property and management staff was demonstrated in various ways, including his long hours of work, ensuring that all needs of the CMPD were met, often coming early and staying late until whatever was required was completed. To foster increased communication and collaboration among staff and the department, Lieutenant Phelps implemented the Property and Evidence Management newsletter. Resulting from Lieutenant Phelps' efforts, additional funds were approved to add space to store found guns. Lieutenant Phelps also encouraged and supported officers being promoted, guiding each in their new assignments. Congratulations, Lieutenant Phelps.
Medal of Merit. The Medal of Merit Award recognizes CMPD employees who have performed admirably in response to specific situations. The incident may have been of an emergency nature or a routine event, but the employee's exceptional performance merits special recognition.
Our first 2 recipients of the Medal of Merit are Officer Austin Kennedy and Officer Kyla Robson. On Saturday, April 4th, 2020, at approximately 7:50 in the evening, officers responded to multiple calls in reference to a subject that was armed and shooting multiple weapons on Conway Avenue. Officers arrived on scene and made contact with the suspect, who was carrying a small child and had a handgun on him. Officers were able to physically disarm the suspect while the suspect made clear attempts to grab the officer's weapons. The officers also physically rescued the child from the suspect and successfully arrested him. Officer Kennedy and Officer Robson distinguished themselves by quickly assessing the situation and reacting appropriately. This was a dangerous and dynamic situation which could have had much greater consequences if it had not been for the actions of these officers. Congratulations, Officer Kennedy, and congratulations, Officer Robson. Our next recipients are Officer Clement Brown, Officer David Curtis, Officer Gabriel Fisher, and Officer Matthew Leahy. While on scene of a domestic call, officers heard a gunshot coming from a hotel room nearby. Officers quickly responded to where they believed the gunshot was coming from and observed a victim lying in the parking lot with an apparent gunshot wound. I got to do too many things at once here. Hold on. Three suspects were detained by the officers as one attempted to flee on foot. Officer Curtis began life-saving efforts by performing CPR on the shooting victim. A short time later, Officer Brown arrived on scene and began assisting Officer Curtis with performing CPR. The individual was transported to the hospital where he later succumbed to his injury. A security officer on scene commented that officers immediately ran to the location of the shot using great communication and tactics while approaching potential suspects. The officers seemed to be ready for the craziness. They did a great job. They really did a great job. This is to commend Officers Curtis, Fisher, Leahy, and Brown for their swift response and composure during an intense situation and their crime-fighting efforts. Congratulations, officers. Our next Medal of Merit recipients are Detective Rick Morgan and Detective Edwin Morales. On March 25th, VCAT detectives responded to Catherine Simmons Avenue to locate a missing juvenile that was possibly a victim of human trafficking. On a previous attempt to locate this individual by another agency, a suspect in the case shot an apartment maintenance worker during the attempt to locate. While at the Catherine Simmons location, the distraught juvenile was located. When the juvenile exited the residence, she was armed with a knife, and during the foot pursuit, she attempted to slash Detective Morgan in the face with the knife. Despite being justified in the use of deadly force, detectives were able to subdue the juvenile without any force or injury to the juvenile or other members of the community. Congratulations, Detective Morgan and Detective Morales. Our final Medal of Merit recipient is Morgan Parks. Morgan was hired in 2016 after a brief internship with the department. After proving the depth of her skills and abilities in grant management, she was identified as a key team member for the 2020 Republican National Convention Planning Committee. During this long planning process that began in the spring of 2019, Morgan frequently found herself working into the night and very early morning, coordinating a multitude of tasks to ensure that the event was a success. Despite the best planning efforts, the COVID-19 pandemic struck the country and forced the planning of the event to drastically adjust. Despite these historic challenges, Morgan was a constant source of stability for the planning team, working in and out of the office beyond any possible expectation to ensure the success of the event. More than a year after the convention, Morgan and the team were still completing the final steps needed to officially close out the event and the massive grant that supports it. Throughout this event, Morgan has received praise from her coworkers, external partners, both federal and local, and many others for her outstanding level of service and commitment to this project and to the department. Her ability to collaborate with others, adapt to change, her grant skills and knowledge, her work ethic, and ultimately her outstanding personality has clearly demonstrated why she should be recognized by the department. Congratulations, Morgan.
Civilian Medal of Valor. The Civilian Medal of Valor may be awarded to citizens who have distinguished themselves by acts of extraordinary bravery, heroism, or sacrifice while preserving the life, liberty, and safety of others.
This year's recipients of the Civilian Medal of Valor are Cardigan Quigley and Wilmer Maida. On December 22nd, a female who was being stalked by her estranged husband attempted to gain access to the gate of her apartment complex with her key card. Once she rolled down the window to her vehicle, her estranged husband entered the vehicle through the window and began assaulting her with a hammer and stabbing her with a knife. Screams from the victim drew the attention of Mr. Quigley and Mr. Maida, who immediately grabbed a ladder from a nearby maintenance vehicle and proceeded to break the windshield. The subject fled the scene and was later charged with attempted murder, among other charges. The quick efforts of these two individuals contributed to saving the victim's life. Congratulations, Mr. Quigley. Congratulations, Mr. Maida.
Preservation of Life Medal. This year, the department is recognizing a new category within the annual department awards, the Preservation of Life Medal. The Preservation of Life Medal may be awarded to a CMPD employee who utilized exceptional tactics or verbal approaches beyond the normal demands of duty to sustain human life or to de-escalate any situation that could have resulted in a deadly response.
Our first recipients of this brand new award are Officer John Gunning, Officer Matthew Fulton, and Officer Chad Waite. On December 30th last year, officers responded to a report of an elderly male subject armed with a shotgun and pointing it at his family members. The armed subject had a long history of mental illness and was currently not taking his medication. The family members were able to remove the firearm from the house, but the subject still barricaded himself inside. Officers on scene established a safe perimeter and began trying to contact the mentally disturbed subject. After an extended period of time, the subject appeared in a back room and was observed cutting his own throat with a knife. After failed attempts at giving the subject verbal commands to drop the knife, Officer Waite deployed the 40 millimeter to attempt to disarm the subject. The first round struck the subject, but he did not drop the knife. A second round stunned the subject long enough for Officer Gunning and Fulton to force entry into the house, where they were able to remove the knife from the subject's hand, safely taking him into custody and getting him the treatment he needed for his self-inflicted injuries, as well as the mental health episode he was experiencing. These officers exemplified great patience, communication, de-escalation techniques, all which led to the preservation of life of a subject desperately in need of help. Congratulations, Officer Gunning, Officer Matthew Fulton, and Officer Waite. Our next two recipients are Officer Gregory Deal and Officer Jenna McClintock. On February 10th of this year, Officer Deal and McClintock encountered a driver of a vehicle that had been the victim of a drive-by shooting. The adult male victim was shot multiple times in the head, the face, chest, and torso areas, and he was also armed with a loaded handgun and rifle in the front driver's area of the vehicle. These officers removed the firearms from the vehicle to render the vehicle and the area safe for medic and the fire department. The victim, who was in a semi-conscious state, let his foot off the brake. Officer Deal was able to stop the vehicle's forward momentum so that the victim could then be removed safely by Officer McClintock. After Officer Nelson secured both the handgun and the rifle, the victim received life-saving medical treatment. Knowing the victim was armed did not deter these officers from safely and effectively de-escalating what could have been a very volatile encounter and getting the victim the medical resources he so desperately needed. Congratulations, Officer Deal. Congratulations, Officer McClintock. Our final recipients of the Preservation of Life Award are Sergeant Blake Holmes, Sergeant Chris Decker, Sergeant Henry Rozelle, Officer Sean Hess, Officer Eric Elron, Officer Grady Bing, Officer Christian Decker, and Officer Derek Sanchez. On September 1st last year, a suspect was barricaded inside his apartment armed with a large kitchen knife. As the officers and sergeants were attempting to determine the course of action, the suspect set multiple fires inside of his residence, endangering the lives of other occupants of the apartment complex along with himself. The officers and sergeants immediately breached the door to the suspect's apartment and deployed a 40-millimeter less lethal munition launcher to disarm the suspect, but it was unsuccessful on 2 attempts. A taser was then deployed on the suspect and was successful in making the suspect drop the knife. The suspect was then removed from the apartment and taken into custody. The officers and sergeants re-entered the apartment and were able to successfully put out all the fires. The quick response and team collaboration helped preserve the apartment building and potentially the lives of other occupants as well as the suspect. Congratulations, sergeants and officers.
Life-Saving Award. The Life-Saving Award recognizes an employee for saving a human life. This year, we are proud to have 30 recipients of this prestigious award.
Our first recipient is Officer Bradley Schwob. On June 17th of this year, Officer Schwob arrived at an accident scene involving a burning vehicle. The officers worked together to pull one subject on the ground away from the vehicle and enter the vehicle to remove the other. The quick actions and teamwork provided by these officers are commendable. Congratulations, Officer Schwob. Our next 2 recipients are Officer Logan Beck and Officer Courtney Dodderer. On August 2nd, last year, Officer Dodderer and Beck responded to a hit-and-run call for service where a victim was severely injured. The officers rendered care to the victim by applying a tourniquet to his leg. The quick and collaborative effort of these officers contributed to saving the victim's life. Congratulations, Officer Beck and Officer Dodderer. Our next recipients are Officer Mara Brennan and Officer Sarah Latchley. On May 27th of this year, Officers Brennan and Latchley arrived at an officer-involved shooting scene where a subject was shot in the hip area. That subject lost consciousness and stopped breathing, and both officers immediately began chest compressions. By administering these chest compressions, the officers were able to prolong the blood circulating to the victim's vital organs until the arrival of the fire department and medic. The quick efforts of these officers contributed to saving the subject's life. Congratulations, Officer Brennan and Latchley. Our next recipient is Officer Zachary Pegram. On November 18th last year, while officers were in pursuit of an ADW suspect, the suspect vehicle collided with another vehicle that was occupied by 3 individuals. The collision resulted in the front passenger being trapped, the driver's head going through the window, and a 3-year-old being ejected from the car. All passengers, including the suspect, received aid. Officer Pegram administered CPR to the 3-year-old prior to the transport to the hospital. The quick efforts of this officer contributed to saving the victim's life. Congratulations, Officer Pegram. Our next recipients are Officer Nicholas Chisholm, Officer Ryan Davis, Officer Rebecca Stanton, and Officer Brandon Varley. On June 29th, Officers Varley, Stanton, Chisholm, and Davis were driving on I-77 when they observed an overturned vehicle. While checking the vehicle, they noticed that the victim was pinned underneath. The officers worked together to lift the vehicle and remove the victim. The efforts of these officers contributed to the victim surviving transport to the hospital. Congratulations, officers. Our next recipient is Officer Jarrett Phillips. Officer Phillips maintained a sense of calm as he applied pressure on the victim's self-inflicted severe lacerations, even as the victim was actively fighting against them. They continued to apply this pressure for over 18 minutes as they waited for medic. Medic advised that the victim would not have survived without this constant care from Officer Phillips. Congratulations, Officer Phillips. Our next recipient, Officer Brian Cuff. Officer Cuff provided immediate aid to a gunshot victim. Recognizing a critical loss of blood in the unresponsive victim, he quickly applied a tourniquet to the wound and, upon closer inspection of the injury, applied a second tourniquet. The nurse advised that the victim would not have survived without the tourniquet applied by Officer Cuff at the scene. Congratulations, Officer Cuff. Our next recipient, Officer Derek Entwistle. Officer Entwistle was patrolling in his response area when he heard gunshots. After calling for backup, he began checking the area and located a victim with 2 gunshot wounds. Officer Entwistle called for medic and then applied a tourniquet to each wound, stabilizing the loss of blood. His attention to detail, quick response, and calmness under pressure directly resulted in the life being saved. Congratulations, Officer Entwistle. Next up, Officer Eric Henry. Officer Henry provided aid to a victim suffering from a significant arterial bleed in the lower leg by applying a tourniquet. This action stopped the bleeding, and without the application of the tourniquet, the loss of blood would have been fatal. His quick action saved the victim's life. Congratulations, Officer Henry. Next up, we have a 2-time Life-Saving Award recipient, Officer Joe Sebastian Morales. Officer Morales provided life-saving aid to a hit-and-run victim. Upon arrival to the scene, Officer Jenkins immediately applied a tourniquet to the victim's leg while Officer Morales assessed the victim and discovered a wound to the victim's abdomen. Officer Morales applied gauze to the abdomen and a second tourniquet when heavy bleeding began during transport. These actions saved the victim's life. The second one, Officer Morales, was a victim was shot in the left arm and was experiencing heavy arterial bleeding. Officer Morales applied a tourniquet and stopped the bleeding before it became fatal. Congratulations, Officer Morales. You got 2 pieces of hardware. Next up, Officer Chandler McGill. Officer McGill immediately responded to an assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious injury call for service and arrived on scene to discover that the victim was bleeding excessively from her right arm. The victim's arm was cut open by the suspect with a knife. In fact, the victim's brachial artery was nicked. Officer McGill applied a tourniquet to the victim's arm to stop the bleeding until medic and the fire department arrived to transport her to the hospital with life-threatening injury. Congratulations, Officer McGill. Our next winner is Officer Gene Moran. Officer Moran responded to a suicidal subject walking in and out of traffic along Independence Boulevard and encountered a female swinging a 4-foot-long stick at Officer Moran while she made her approach. The female also had a rock in her hand, and it could not be determined what the female's intentions were due to her extreme mental state. Officer Moran was able to convince the female to drop the stick and rock, but then she walked out into traffic on Independence Boulevard. Officer Moran quickly approached the female in the middle of the road, putting herself in danger, grabbing the female and putting her on the grass median to be secured in handcuffs. Civilian witnesses stated that Officer Moran had to wrestle the victim to the ground to save her life. Congratulations, Officer Moran. The next winner, Sergeant David Prince. On December 10th of last year, Sergeant Prince was traveling home when he observed a vehicle on fire on I-85. Sergeant Prince stopped and ran over to assist the Cramerton Police Department officer who was already on scene. His intent was to use his fire extinguisher. However, when he realized the vehicle was occupied, he recognized the exigency needed to remove the non-responsive occupants. Sergeant Prince pulled the driver and directed the Cramerton Police Department to stay with this driver while he ran to the passenger side of the vehicle. An unknown Gaston County police officer had arrived and was discharging a fire extinguisher under Mr. Hickman's vehicle. Sergeant Prince shattered the front passenger window to reach the front passenger, and during this effort, Sergeant Prince received a laceration on his right forearm. Gaston County officers were then able to pull this driver from the vehicle, and Sergeant Prince stayed with both until fire and EMS arrived. At that time, Sergeant Prince was treated for his injury. Sergeant Prince's quick decision to stop his vehicle and the collaborative response of these officers saved both victims' lives. Congratulations, Sergeant Prince. Our next winner is Officer Derek Schuler. On June 20th of last year, a victim was shot multiple times and had lost a significant amount of blood prior to Officer Schuler's arrival. Officer Schuler, without a moment's hesitation, took control of the scene and triaged the victim's injuries, locating multiple bullet wounds. He applied tourniquets and direct pressure to the injuries, as well as directing another officer on how to treat the other bullet wounds. He then retrieved his personal trauma kit from his vehicle to better treat the victims. When the fire department and medic both arrived, he relayed all the information he had. The victim was rushed to Atrium, Maine, and went directly into surgery. Officer Schuler's experience in the U.S. Army as a medic, with his advanced medical knowledge and calm demeanor, as well as his application of his tourniquets and personal medical equipment, saved the victim's life. Congratulations, Officer Schuler. Our final life-saving award recipient of the year is Officer Matthew Tomasino. On June 19th of this year, Officer Tomasino observed a fully engulfed truck on I-77 under the Brookshire Freeway. He immediately requested fire, medic, and backup. The driver was badly burned and unresponsive, and the passenger was screaming and lying on top of the driver. Officer Tomasino managed to get through to her that they had to move away from the truck while ensuring no one else was in the car. Officer Tomasino helped her off the victim and onto her feet to get away from the flames. He then picked up the male victim and began dragging him up the embankment. Seconds later, the truck exploded and likely had an ammunition cook-off too. Officer Tomasino then managed the scene and provided first aid to the victims with the help of passerbys until fire and medic arrived. His calm and professional demeanor, efforts, and wit saved the lives of both of these individuals. Congratulations, Officer Tomasino.
Civilian Employee Service Award. The Civilian Employee Service Award is presented to a civilian police employee who exemplifies the mission and principles of CMPD.
This year's winner is Nicole Bain of the Independence Division. Nicole has developed a reputation for being professional, reliable, and exceptional in the performance of her duties, first as a telecommunicator and now as an investigative technician for the Independence Division. In her time with Independence, Nicole has elevated the position by taking on additional responsibilities that have improved daily operations. As an example, she received training to run criminal histories and other programs to prevent officers from having to rely on outside resources to receive the information that they needed. Nicole played a vital role in the transition of the division into its new office in the fall of last year, using her creativity and ingenuity to make the process run seamlessly. Nicole also extends this willingness to help to the community too. During the holiday season of last year, she assisted with providing a family gift for their children during a catastrophic time in their life. She brings so much value to the organization, and her tremendous drive sets her bar high for all CMPD employees. Congratulations, Nicole.
The Service Award. The Citizen Service Award is presented to citizens who have worked with the police and exhibited considerable initiative and resolve in one or more of the following areas: addressing problems within the community, improving neighborhood safety and conditions, serving as a community leader as demonstrated by their actions, service or work with youth, and or have accomplished some other extraordinary act of service to CMPD or the community.
This year's Citizen Service Award recipient is Mark Bokikio. For the past 15 years, Mark has quietly served the women and men of the CMPD and other first responders. Since 2005, he's coordinated the Charlotte Salute to Heroes hockey game and also coordinated this year's Chiefs Cup baseball game. These events provide first responder families an opportunity to come together and enjoy a day with the community while raising money to support first responders who face unexpected financial hardships. In 2020, when the annual Salute to Heroes game could not be held due to the pandemic, Mark partnered with Medic to launch Feed the Frontline Mecklenburg and served over 13,000 meals to first responder organizations in Mecklenburg County. This was especially impactful as a morale boost to police officers working during times of community protest. Mark has never sought public recognition for his service. In fact, he's often heard saying, "First responders come when the community calls for help. I want to be there for you when you need help." Mark, thank you for your service to the department and other first responders in Mecklenburg County.
Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing. The Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing may be awarded to CMPD employees who have distinguished themselves by exceptional performance that clearly benefited CMPD, citizens, the communities we police, and/or advanced the field of policing in general.
This year's first recipient for Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing is work done for the North End Encampment Project. Included are Captain Zaru Chicory, Lieutenant Jesus Rendon, Captain Brett Balamucky, Officer Jonathan Cooper, Officer Mike Cotton, Officer Charlie Eubank, Officer Johnny Felipe, Officer James Witt, Officer Nicholas Grove, Officer Yancy Contreras, Officer Kenya Young, CPCRT clinician Allison Pasterik, and CPCRT clinician Alicia Begrin. These award recipients assisted the residents of the North End Homeless Encampment, also known as Tent City, with moving to more permanent housing after an abrupt abatement order was issued by the county due to a rodent infestation. Officers worked throughout the weekend of February 20th and 21st to assist almost 200 residents as they relocated to area hotels. Their diligence, patience, empathy, understanding, and grace were all on display as they persuaded every single individual to move, avoiding the need to take enforcement action. Congratulations, captains, lieutenant, sergeants, and officers.
Right here. Right, middle, right, thank you. Good. Hold on one second, sorry. All right, 1, 2, 3. Good. Right here, middle. Thank you.
Sorry, Cliff, I missed you. Cliff Albanese was also part of that.
One, two, three, right here, middle. One, two, three. One, two, three.
Now we'll do a group picture.
Yep.
Our next recipients for the Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing go to the Wellness Canine Initiative. Included are Lieutenant Erica Ojanet, Julia Connor, Dr. Josh Fisher,
Right here. Middle. Middle. Right here.
Fred Cracky,
1, 2, 3.
Officer Russ Falkenberry, and his partner, Yeti. The star of the show.
Right here.
In early 2020, Officer Falkenberry developed the idea to implement the CMPD Wellness Canine Initiative, a first-of-its-kind program for the department to assist those in crisis or need. He, along with Lieutenant Ojanet, Deputy Chief Arrington, Animal Control Technician Julia Connor, and Veterinary Doctor Josh Fisher, worked together to develop the program and maintain the healthy Yeti, the giant Pyrenees, who is the CMPD's first ever wellness canine. As a fleet supervisor for CMPD, Fred Cracky assisted in the acquisition and outfitting of the Wellness Canine's patrol vehicle that allowed Yeti to remain safe while on duty. Because of their hard work, Yeti has been deployed more than 140 times to assist with crisis debriefs and has become a staple of the department's resiliency program. When we talk about having an impact on the wellness of those around us, Yeti and this program are just the beginning. This team is to be commended for using their why to improve the lives of those around them. And Yeti is not a fan of the stairs. Our next recipients for the Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing go to those involved in our COVID-19 response. Captain Jonathan Thomas, Lieutenant Dondi Pogue, Sergeant Billy Irby, Sergeant Kevin Triola, Detective Travis Cook, Detective Juan Varela, Officer Daniel Youngblood, Detective Eric Mickley, Detective Danny Graham, and Officer Chad Denton. In early 2020, as the world was going into lockdown because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's Alcohol Beverage Control Unit was tasked with education and enforcement on the North Carolina Governor's executive orders. The ABC unit conducted thousands of compliance-related education and inspection visits for business owners and cited dozens of non-compliant businesses. The City of Charlotte employed an online system so citizen reports could be quickly and efficiently routed to law enforcement. In addition to their regular duties and while working remotely, Becky Wilkins also processed over 4,000 reports. Each complaint was evaluated and valid issues were routed to Special Operations, the ABC unit, or the division where they occurred. The Special Events Division was also tasked with coordinating the safety of CMPD employees and citizens from the risk of COVID-19. Captain Thomas and Lieutenant Pogue and Sergeant Irby planned and staffed large vaccination sites serving the public and vaccine distribution for regional law enforcement. This team managed employee exposure, protocols, and developed standard procedures for response. Captain Thomas acquired personal protective equipment for the department while the world was experiencing severe shortages. Sergeant Irby evaluated over 1,000 exposure cases in a year, performing contact tracing and scheduling tests. These employees exhibited adaptability to an ever-changing COVID landscape, accessibility and responsiveness at every level of this organization, and willingness to accept this challenge head-on. They made CMPD a safer place to work and set a standard for other agencies to follow. Congratulations all. Our next recipients for the Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing go to those involved in the DNA from Cartridge Casings Initiative. Recipients are Ashley Morgan, Eve Rossi, Tony Roncase, Patricia Byron, January Kirkpatrick, and Abby Moykins. The biology section of the crime lab recognized the long-standing problem and shortfall of traditional DNA recovery techniques related to fired evidence and developed a unique approach to processing such evidence. The results of their new and inventive processing method were seen almost immediately when DNA was recovered from cartridge casings collected from a homicide scene. This early success exceeded expectations and was soon followed by additional DNA profiles developed in other homicide cases. The new method marks a significant improvement in the DNA results obtained from testing discharged cartridge cases and has already proven to be extremely valuable in violent crime investigations in advancing the field of forensic DNA. Congratulations, gentlemen and ladies. Our next recipients of the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing go to those involved in the NIBIN program initiative. Included are Gene Rivera, Robert Moore, Michelle Schuerman, Jennifer Polieber, Sergeant Kenny Jones, Detective John Fish, Detective Jeff Redfern, and Detective Scott Maxfield. In February of last year, the firearms section of the crime lab began the NIBIN program initiative designed to help reduce violent crime by linking firearms and fired evidence to crime scenes using the NIBIN database, which stands for National Integrated Ballistic Information Network. In the first 16 months of the program, the firearms section test-fired 3,900 firearms, examining over 12,500 cartridge cases from 1,500 shooting cases, and provided almost 1,100 investigative leads. Each of the more than 1,000 investigative leads represented a link between a firearm and a crime scene evidence, or a link between two shooting scenes that would not have been known prior to implementation of the expanded NIBIN program. Their outstanding work has considerably changed the way forensic evidence is being used to support investigations. Scott, stay up here. Congratulations. Our next recipients for the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing go to those involved in the Street Racing Task Force. Captain Dave Harris, Lieutenant Jonathan Wally, Sergeant Billy Irby, Sergeant Emily Spindler, Detective Andrew Oberer, Detective Amy Kelly, Detective Kevin Stafford, Detective Jamie Welch, Officer Marshawn Cook, and Lisa Labriola. Our department saw a marked increase in citizen complaints about aggressive driving, loud mufflers, and street racing in highly populated areas during the COVID lockdown. In October of 2020, the Transportation Division and Intelligence Division collaborated and began a targeted traffic enforcement campaign focusing on reckless driving and street racing, engaging every single department division in addition to external agencies. From February of 2021 to April of 2021, everyone worked diligently to build cases against offenders in conjunction with the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office. On May 6th of this year, an early morning multi-jurisdictional roundup saw 51 suspects charged and 58 highly expensive vehicles seized. These efforts resulted in over 2,500 traffic stops, 3,500 violations to include 2,100 speeding violations, 400 reckless driving violations, 32 DWIs, 10 racing violations, and more than 1,000 other related charges in total. The success of this initiative would not have been possible without the diligence and professionalism of all employees involved. Thank you all very much. Our next recipients of the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing go to those involved in the pressure group investigation. Included are Detective Don Martin, Detective Brandon Sinote, Detective Jonathan Tobe, Sergeant Tom Gross, Detective Peter Carbonaro, Concord Police Department Detective Garen Lawing, and ATF Special Agent Jason Murphy. In late 2019, detectives from the Firearms Unit and Homicide Unit noticed that there were a string of robberies, several of which resulted in a homicide that were potentially connected. They began looking into the incidents and quickly determined there was a high likelihood these incidents were connected. Detectives also determined that the incidents appeared to extend beyond our department's jurisdiction. A multi-jurisdictional team was put together from the affected jurisdictions, including CMPD, Cabarrus County, Sheriff's Office, Concord Police Department, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This team began a comprehensive investigation leveraging the collected resources of their agencies to identify and apprehend the extremely violent individuals responsible for this string of crimes. As a result of this investigation, 3 suspects were tied to 5 homicides and a number of armed robberies in Charlotte, Hickory, and Concord. Without the partnership and dedication of these detectives and agents, the connections between these cases would not have been made, and these suspects would not have been brought to justice. Congratulations. Our final recipient this year of the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing goes to Detective Kevin Stussy, involved in the skimmer legislation. Detective Stussy has become an expert in the area of financial transaction card forgery devices, more commonly known as credit card skimmers. These skimmer devices were have evolved in recent years, and the information they collect can now be harvested remotely and then permanently deleted, preventing law enforcement from seeing what information was collected and identifying individual victims. Detective Stussy recognized that the 2 existing statutes under which offenders could be charged had not evolved to keep pace with this new technology. He began working with North Carolina Representative John Torbert to make a change, educating him on the implications for law enforcement. On March 3rd of this year, the proposed bill, House Bill 238, was referred to the Judicial Committee, and by March 17th, the bill was sent to the House of Representatives for a vote. On June 21st, the Senate passed House Bill 238, and Governor Cooper subsequently signed it into law. Detective Stussy used his expertise in identifying critical gaps in the general statutes and has made it possible for law enforcement agencies across the state to better serve the unsuspecting victims of this crime. Congratulations, Detective Stussy.
Chief's Unit Citation. The Chief's Unit Citation is awarded to a departmental unit or section whose performance is indicative of a high degree of initiative, determination, diligence, and cooperative effort in the fulfillment of a difficult mission, operation, task, or project.
Our first recipients of the Chief's Unit Citation go to the sergeant, detectives, and individuals working in the Missing Persons Unit. including Sergeant Mike Burke, Detective Adam Bonaparte, Detective Keelan Childers, Detective Mary Whitcomb, Kirsten Abbott, and Bonita Dees. Last year, the Missing Persons Unit investigated 2,340 missing person cases. Many of these cases involved at-risk community members who require additional assistance, and the unit works to provide solutions to each personal or family challenge. One initiative the unit continues to invest in to improve the quality of life for these community members is Project Lifesaver International, which uses radio frequency tracking technology to locate at-risk individuals who suffer from cognitive impairments such as Alzheimer's, Down syndrome, autism, or other special needs. Detectives and civilians work directly with clients who are identified as at risk for wandering and injury through their investigations and through community partners such as Autism Charlotte, the Veterans Administration, and the Alzheimer's Foundation. The Missing Persons Unit worked with Atrium Health and the U.S. Marshals Service to conduct an operation focused on long-term missing runaway juveniles in the area who were gone for more than 6 weeks. Operation Carolina Homecoming sought to solve the issue by providing services immediately to juveniles at the time of recovery. This initiative led to the recovery of 130 missing juveniles, most of whom had been missing for more than 6 months. During the intensive portion of the operation, 13 juveniles were recovered. The Missing Persons Unit deserves to be recognized with the Chief's Unit Citation Award because of their sustained excellence in the initiatives that support the work that have clearly benefited the community. Congratulations. Our next recipients of the Chief Unit Citation Award go to the members of the Crime Analysis Division, including Monica Wynn, Michael Humphrey, Megan Allen, Jabril Muhaiman, Brian Black, Tamitha Clodfelter, Stephen Udi, Zayna Johnson, James Marchbanks, Megs, Susan Morris, Katie Marak, Kathleen Ortiz, Audrey Sullivan, Richard Swallows, Timothy Sweet, Kristen Vick, and Andrea Wilson. Over the past 12 months, the crime analysis team has assisted with identifying over 350 subjects and vehicles of interest involving over 150 active crime series groups or over 90 crime bulletins, and provided on-call support for over 24 major cases to help the department make informed decisions and strengthen case outcomes. They also took the initiative to develop new resources and applications to help maintain precision focus on top priorities, with 3 of the most notable contributions being the weekly active crime series briefs shared with all sworn officers, the Hive Group of Interest dashboard, and the inaugural accountability dashboard. The crime analysis team enhanced their support directed at violent crime by building new and improved processes to collect, link, analyze, report on, and facilitate internal and interagency collaboration. These efforts have made it possible to constantly disseminate actionable information to CMPD's newly formed crime gun suppression team or other investigative units and patrol divisions. It's the crime analysis team's goal to empathize with their customers to fully understand their objectives, educate them on what is possible, and exceed their expectations in the delivery of data and analytics, services, and support. The result of this diligence and determination has consistently left a positive impression to customers served by the crime analysis team, both inside and outside the organization. Our next recipients of the Chief's Unit Citation go to our Honor Guard. Chief, there's going to be some dressed people coming out here. Sergeant Jason Haithcock, Sergeant Chris Walters, Detective Spencer Brown, Detective Tim Illuminati, Officer Stephen Begley, Officer Mike Birch, Officer Johnny Felipe, Officer Sangwan Lee, Officer Samuel Rawls, Officer Bradley Schwob, and Officer Andrew Worthy. The members of the Honor Guard recognize that it is a completely voluntary unit within the department, meaning that participation in every event is going above and beyond the call of duty. They're always called upon and relied upon, but often go unrecognized. Each member takes great pride in the uniform, the brotherhood of policing, and in the department itself. Each event requires much practice, dedication, and focus. The unit spends 8 hours a day, multiple days within the year, practicing rifle movements, casket guard, flag folding, and much more to ensure that every single event is done with precision and pride. Members of the Honor Guard unit often travel to funerals and ceremonies out of county and even out of state on their days off to represent our fine department. They fit the very definition of the Chief's Unit Citation Award with consistent performance indicative of a high degree of initiative, determination, diligence, and cooperative effort in fulfilling their mission flawlessly. Our final recipients of the year are the Police Activities League that received the Chief's Unit Citation. Included are Sergeant Anthony Hall, Officer Anthony Bogues, Officer Reggie Gilmore, and Kimberly Venable. The Police Activities Unit works hand in hand with PAL Charlotte, the nonprofit organization of the Police Activities League. The unit is composed of 2 officers, a non-sworn employee, and managed by a sergeant. This unit is being recognized for its extraordinary work to assist youth during the pandemic. Their activities included establishment of a virtual learning site at the Greenville Center to provide academic support, partnering with the Mecklenburg County Parks and Recreation as well as the YMCA entities to provide outlets safely through sanitizing, screening, and following established protocols. This led to the Police Activities League unit managing a flag football, baseball, soccer, and basketball leagues all last year with approximately 160 participants. The Police Activities League has also completed for the first time an indoor soccer league and are currently managing another baseball league in 2021 with 105 participants. The diligence of the unit has led to no COVID outbreak clusters because of their tireless sanitizing protocols, screening, and social distancing procedures. Their crucial work in supporting the youth of the community have earned them this recognition. Congratulations. Today, we had the opportunity of recognizing 197 individuals who performed incredible acts of bravery, extraordinary acts of kindness, and amazing acts of selflessness. The incredible part about all of this is that if you ask each of them what they did they thought was extraordinary, they would have just said that it was an ordinary day. Thank you all for tuning in today to celebrate the great work, the courageous acts, and the indomitable grit that has been shown by the members of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department over the past year. We look forward to sharing this year's incredible work with you all during Police Week next year in May. Until then, have a beautiful day and be blessed. Thank you very much.